Hi guys, it's Margaret Floyd Barry here, founder of Eat Naked, and my job is to inspire and help you feel better in your body than you even knew possible. So today I'm going to ask a great question that we got from Latasha, and this is actually one that I get asked about a lot from clients, and it's about red meat. She asks, how do I cut back on red meat? So first off, I want to say yes. Typically, at least here in North America, we tend to eat way too much red meat. But I want to have a big old caveat that it's not, beef is not beef is not beef. And when I say red meat, I'm going to talk about beef right now because that's primarily the one everybody's eating. So there's a huge difference in the nutritional value and the health impacts of beef from a grass-fed and pastured cow versus beef that comes from a cow raised in an industrial environment, in a big factory farm. On pretty much every level, these are two completely different things from the animal's experience, from the environmental impact, and from the health impact to you when you're consuming the meat from it. So I think that's a really important distinction because we hear a lot of bad things about eating red meat, and there's this pretty pervasive belief that red meat is really bad for you. And like anything, it's just not that clear cut. If you are eating meat that has been conventionally raised and has been finished in a big feedlot, then absolutely, you know what, I would recommend that not only do you minimize it, but that you don't eat any of that. And the reason for that is that the environmental consequences of industrial farming, particularly with animals, are atrocious. It's one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases. It's devastating and polluting our water supplies. I mean, it's a horrible impact. The animals are living pretty miserable lives. They're eating foods that they're not biologically designed to eat. And then the nutrient profile as a result of that meat that we then eat is completely different. There's a saying of, you are what you eat. And we take that to another level of you are what you eat eats. So it's really, we have to think about the whole impact of that. And yes, beef that comes from an environment like this is very inflammatory, and I highly recommend that you avoid it or drastically minimize it. On the other hand, beef that comes from cows that have been raised on pasture, and that are both what we call grass-fed and grass-finished, meaning that they have been fed grass basically throughout their entire life, not just at the beginning of their lifespan and then transferred over to a finishing facility where they load them up on grains and all sorts of things that are not what they're sort of biologically designed to eat. The environmental impacts of this, in fact, in complete opposition to it being a negative environmental impact, a lot of these farmers have found ways that they're actually increasing the biodiversity and where the animals are a really integrated part of that natural ecosystem, and they're contributing as opposed to depleting resources. At the same time, the life that these animals are living is a completely different thing. The farmer Joel Salatin, which I'm sure many of you have come across, he has a pretty famous saying of, these are really happy cows that have one bad day. Right? It's a totally different thing. And then as a result of all of this, the nutritional profile of truly grass-fed beef is actually very similar to wild salmon. And I bet that you have a pretty good opinion of wild salmon in terms of its health benefits. But the fatty acid profile, and it's the fats in the meat that is really what makes it inflammatory or not inflammatory, is actually very similar to wild salmon when it's raised properly and eating the food that it's actually biologically designed to eat. So this is, this question of quality and of how the animal was raised is a really important one. So first thing you want to be thinking of is it's not just about how much red meat you eat, it's about what red meat are you eating, where is it coming from? So that's the most important thing. Now, when you're eating this meat that comes from happy, healthy animals, it's totally fine to eat 2 or more servings of this a week, absolutely. I think that we get in these ruts of just eating like we eat our chicken, we eat our beef, and then we eat maybe our salmon, and we eat the same thing again and again and again. And one of the best things that you can do for your health overall is to add variety to that. So you want to be thinking outside the box of just these things, like different types of wild fish, different, bring in some eggs from pasture-raised chickens, some chicken, yes, but maybe some turkey and other kinds of poultry. Think about lamb. Think about other meats that you can do as well. Maybe even have a meatless Monday or something like this as well, where you're really loading up on those veggies and not actually depending on animals for your source of protein for a day or two in the week. Another thing when you're thinking about how much meat you're eating, and I'm going to make this a blanket thing for all meat and not just about beef, but most everybody, and this is whether you're an omnivore and hardcore carnivore or you're a vegetarian, most people could benefit from eating significantly more vegetables. So that's something I want you to be thinking about as well. It's not just how much of the beef you're eating. I want you to be thinking about how many veggies you're eating. And a really good goal to strive for is 2 to 3 cups a day per meal. It's pretty easy to get to 2 to 3 cups a day. 2 to 3 cups per meal. And I include breakfast in that. And that's just a really great way to, when you're really focusing on what you are trying to get in as opposed to what you're trying to get out of the diet, that's actually a really great strategy, because if you're focusing on eating 3 cups of veggies, that's actually quite filling, a whole lot of chewing, and you don't have as much room to load up on this gigantic slab of steak or something like this. So I want you to be thinking about the quality of the meat that you're eating. How is it raised? How is that animal fed? I want you to think about diversity of your protein sources, and I want you to think about really upping your veggie intake, because that's one way that you can kind of displace some of the excessive protein intake if you are one of those people who is eating too much protein, and that number is something that varies from person to person. Now, before we go, I actually want to bring my partner in all things life and business to weigh in on the equation. Chef James has a lot of thoughts on this, and he's definitely the one in charge of what we're eating in our household.
Hi everyone, Chef James Berry here. I'm here to help support and inspire you to get real food into your diet. So let's talk about red meat, because you know what? For some reason we're all stuck in this idea that red meat has to be beef or cow. What happened? Where did that come from, right? We're so American. I mean, you go to anywhere else in Canada, you go Europe, they're eating elk, they're eating buffalo, they're eating wild boar. If you go to Hawaii, which I know is part of the U.S., but I mean, there's just so many other animals being eaten. So don't get locked into only eating beef. And then take that concept and then also apply it to other parts of the animal, right? I mean, you could still apply this to beef, but for example, are you eating the liver? Are you eating the heart? Are you eating the hind leg, or are you just eating the same muscle meat all the time? Okay, so don't always just buy the same cut of meat. Think about what type of animal, think about the cut, think about the actual part of the animal, and definitely do not shy away from organ meat. We are severely depleted from eating organ meats. Lots of vitamin B. I mean, Margaret can talk about the benefits of organ meat, but oh my gosh, get it into your diet. And you know what? In fact, I think you've just inspired me. I have got to create the most amazing organ meat recipe, okay? You have inspired me. I'm going to give myself 1 week to come up with that. So you are going to see a video with a recipe very soon about how to incorporate organ meat into your diet, okay? So I am committing to that. You commit to me to coming back and checking out that video. But in the meantime, think about the animal and trying to add that variety of different animals, okay? Now, second thing, and this is a game changer. Okay, when you're making something with ground meat, okay, any ground meat, could be boar, it could be beef, it could be turkey, it could be chicken, it doesn't matter. I want you to think of it in a different way. So let's just say you're making a hamburger. That's usually what we all do with ground beef. So I want you to think of it from the perspective of 20 to 30% of that hamburger is meat. 60 to 70 or 80, whatever I said 20 to 30. So 80 to 70% of that hamburger is vegetable. Okay, I know I may have just blown your mind here, but here's the thing. You're going to think to yourself, but no, that's not a hamburger. But I promise you, it is going to be the most delicious hamburger you have ever had. Now, you're probably wondering, but how do I get those vegetables in like if I put a whole piece of broccoli into the hamburger, it's just gonna look like this ugly part meat veggie burger thing. But that's not how you do it. You take a food processor. That was Margaret just whispering. Sometimes I lose the name of things. I don't know what that's about. Okay, so you take like a food processor and you just blend the heck out of all those vegetables. So I like to use like zucchini. Sometimes I throw some nuts in there. I'll even take the stalks from the broccoli, the stems, you know, from the broccoli, not the really hard parts, but the softer parts. I'll throw those in. I'll throw cauliflower in, maybe a little parsley. I mean, you could go crazy. There's a couple of vegetables I wouldn't do that with, like maybe celery, because those have little strings in them, and that can get kind of, anything that's too fibrous, don't throw in there. Let's just have that as a rule. Anything overly fibrous. But you could throw spinach, you could throw kale, I mean, anything that's kind of hearty and that can be cooked. So just throw that in, pulverize it, carrots, don't forget carrots, and just pulverize it and then add that to the meat. And I know I said 80, 20 to 30% of the meat, but if that kind of freaks you out, then do 60-40, 40% meat, 60% vegetables. Do what feels right. If you want to start out slow, do 50% meat, 50% vegetables. Okay? But whatever you're doing, here's my second half.
I have to interject here. I'm supposed to be behind the camera right now, and I can't kind of resist. But I have to interject here because was it even just last week?
Yeah.
James made these turkey meatballs, and I was teaching.
You freaked out about it.
Well, I was teaching, so I was eating them cold, right? So I was eating them later. And I'll be honest, often when I get dinner cold up, because I've been teaching, it's not the best. And this time I was like, oh my God, this is delicious. What is this? And I came out and I was like, babe, I don't know what you did with those meatballs, but that was like out of this world. And he was like, oh, it's because they're like 80% vegetables. They were amazing, but it didn't taste like I was eating like a veggie burger. It just tasted like I was eating the softest, juiciest, most flavorful turkey meatballs I think I'd ever had. So I just want to give that as a little caveat. Can I let you do your thing?
No, well, actually, stay in here. Come back. Okay, so because I can tell some of you don't believe me, I want you to click the link below this video, and I am going to give them our, I think it's like, oh, hi Naya, she wants to get in on this video too. Up. Hi, that's Naya. Hi. Okay. So because I can tell some of you don't believe me, I want you to click this link below. I am going to give you one of the most popular recipes from our cookbook, the Naked Foods Cookbook. And if you don't have that yet, I highly recommend it. This is one of those cookbooks that people tell us they use every day. This is not one of those cookbooks like, oh, it's pretty, I'm just going to put it on my shelf and never use it. Like, this is something people use. This is like the utilitarian cookbook. Like, we use it. Ours is destroyed. I'll have to show that to you in another video. But it's destroyed because we use it so much. You would think we'd be able to afford a new copy or something, but for some reason we don't.
We're emotionally attached to this book, right?
But so I'm going to give you our turkey meatball recipe, but it's not the same one from the cookbook. This is going to be kind of a tweaked, new and improved, only for those watching this video that click on the link below. So make sure to do that. Do that now, get this recipe, try it out so that next time in the comments below you can say, oh my gosh, OMG, OMG, this is a really good meatball. Or you can say, OMG, Chef James and Margaret, you are totally right. I am now a believer. Hamburgers, turkey meatballs, or meatballs don't have to be all meat.
Or you can also say, you're completely nuts. And let us know what you think of it. And also let us know if you have any other questions or if you want any other cooking tips, and we are happy to provide. Thank you so much.
Thank you.